Okay, so the next part of the assessment is canapes. Now, unlike the Caesar salad where you just made one, with the canapes you've got to make two different types, but three of each type. Okay, so I hope that's fairly clear what you're doing. Okay, so in front of me I've got the other half of the chicken breast. We're going to use that as one of them, and we're going to breadcrumb them in small pieces and deep fry them. Over here as well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these three pieces of bread that I've cut out from a single slice. I've cut them into squares, okay, but we could use something like this to cut them into circles if you wanted. So they're simply cut out from a slice of white sliced loaf, okay, and we're going to bake these in the oven. I've also got in this tub some cream cheese, which is full fat, and I've got some smoked salmon and some chives, and that is all that I need for the canapes. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do, because this takes probably the longest, is I'm just going to lay the pieces of bread on a tray and again drizzle them with olive oil. Now if you're really wise, remember this is all part of one assessment, the Caesar salad and the canapes. You could cook these pieces of bread at the same time as you did the bread with the Caesar salad. So you could put them all on one tray and bake them in the oven. Again, these are going to go into an oven about 180 degrees for about 10 minutes. So the next part is the preparation and the breadcrumb of our half of chicken breast that we had left from our Caesar salad. So I'm going to cut those into fairly even sized pieces, okay, and canapes should be about bite size. So if you imagine these three pieces of chicken here, they're all a fairly similar size, and they're about the size of something that you could just put in your mouth in one bite. We're going to take those three pieces of chicken and we're going to breadcrumb them. Okay, so I've got already set up, if you remember, this is called a pane, and we start off with flour, egg and breadcrumbs, and we're going to put our chicken through the pane. A little bit of seasoning to start off with, a little bit of pepper as well, and into the flour first. Make sure it's coated, and then shake off any excess and into the egg. Same with each piece, exactly the same. Knock off any excess flour into the egg. And then if you remember, with a pane, there's a really important rule. We always keep one hand dry and we use one hand that's wet. Okay, so this is going to be my wet hand, so I'm just going to make sure that's well coated in the egg, and it's going to go into the breadcrumbs. Same with this one. Coat it really well in the egg, drain off any excess into the breadcrumbs. Last one, drain off the egg and into the breadcrumbs, and then using the dry hand, I'm going to lift out the pieces of chicken. Make sure they're really well coated in the breadcrumbs. All the egg will soak up those breadcrumbs, and then straight back out onto the board. It's still a raw product, remember, so it's okay to be on the red board. And those are our three pieces of chicken ready. They just need to be deep fried. So the last part of filling for the canapes is the cream cheese. And as I said, in here I've got some full fat cream cheese, and I'm just going to sprinkle in there some really finely chopped chives. They're just really there for colour, and I'm just going to mix them in really well, so they're really nicely combined. Okay, they will give a little bit of flavour as well, but it's mainly for the colour that the chives are in there. So mix it in really, really well so that it becomes a little bit smoother and nice and creamy. And then I've got a piping bag with a star nozzle in it. And I'm just going to put the cream cheese into the piping bag. So usual story with a piping bag, just wrap it over your hand and then onto your spoon. Pop the spoon in, grab the spoon and scrape off the mixture. And get as much mixture out of the bowl as you possibly can. So that as little as possible is wasted. So the next stage is the assembly of the dish, which we start by cooking the chicken, which will take about 2 to 3 minutes in the deep fat fryer. Okay, so if you're doing this at home, you could use shallow frying method, just like you did with when we were making risotto and the other couple of things. But here, into the basket, really, really carefully, lower them about 180 degrees, and they're going to take about 3 to 4 minutes to cook. So usually you can tell when these are ready, they start to float to the surface, as you can see with these here. They become a really, really nice golden brown colour. And then really, really carefully, we're going to tip them out onto some paper just to drain them off. And be careful not to burn yourself. My hands are quite tough, so it doesn't bother me too much. But onto the paper, and then a little bit of seasoning, just with a little bit of salt, just for flavour. So the next part is the smoked salmon, and this is just here as a garnish, really, a decoration for the cream cheese canapé. And you can see on the smoked salmon that it's got some lines on it. We're just going to use those as a guide. And all I need is a couple of strips, really, just for decoration. I don't need lots and lots. So I'm just going to cut just along those strips and give myself, as I said, we're going to do 3 of each variety. So I'm just going to cut out 3 strips of smoked salmon. We're going to try and make them all fairly even size if we can. Okay, so I'll cut out one more piece and then try and get a strip that's fairly similar size. Any little pieces that are left, they'll all get used by another group, so don't worry about having a little bit left. Smoked salmon is quite expensive, so obviously we're not going to throw it away, but we're looking for 3 sort of fairly evenly sized strips like that for garnish. So the last little part of our demonstration is just assembling the canapes, and I've got a piece of slate here. You don't have to use a piece of slate, but this is quite a nice way of presenting our canapes to whoever it might be, our dinner guests or whoever. So I've got the 3 croutons that I made up, and using the cream cheese in the piping bag, we're going to really, really carefully just pipe some of the cream cheese on top. You don't need lots and lots. So this might take a little bit of practicing for you, because piping's quite a skill. And then on top of each one, we're just going to pop a piece of smoked salmon, just diagonally across. I think it looks quite nice. And we're going to pop them onto our slate. And you can see how I've just evenly spaced them out so that they're nicely spaced. And then we've got our pieces of chicken, which I'm just going to lay out as well, sort of fairly evenly spaced out. And then this bit will be made for you as well. In this bag I've got a sauce which consists of mayonnaise and some dill. I'm just going to use that as a little bit of a garnish just on top, because it's quite a nice little sauce to go on. And then, because it's a food that you'd eat while you're maybe having a drink or a cocktail before the meal, something like that, we're just going to put in these skewers as well, so that guests can pick them up on skewers and eat them off the skewer. Okay, so there are our canapes. Remember, 2 different types, 3 of each.